Take a look at this rare video of Hiroshima from 1945. The U.S. military shot this footage right after the atomic blast that ultimately killed about 140,000 people.
You might think everything about our heroes, legends, and buildings past is revealed to you in your history classes, but you couldn't be more wrong. The modern educational system can be crafty, and it has carefully concealed a dark but important history it doesn't want you to know. There is so much hidden from you that you wouldn't have imagined really happened decades and centuries ago.
On June 1st, they began to systematically destroy neighborhoods, and they had airplanes dropping things down on people's houses, and they had made up their minds to clear the entire area of black people.
Brace yourself as we reveal the top 20 terrible verified historical facts that are forbidden to be talked about in school. Prepare to be shocked by the truth behind what you thought you knew and the significant revelations you've been kept in the dark about. Number 20. The suppressed Tulsa Race Massacre. In 1921, the Greenwood District in Tulsa, Oklahoma, known as Black Wall Street, was a vibrant and prosperous African-American community. The catalyst for the massacre was an incident involving a young black man, Dick Rowland, and a white elevator operator, Sarah Page. The details remain unclear, but an altercation between them sparked racial tensions, amplified by the prevailing racial hatred of the time. This tension escalated when a local newspaper published an inflammatory article, further fueling racial hatred. On May 31st and June 1st, 1921, the situation erupted into violence. A white mob, driven by racial hatred and armed with weapons, attacked the Greenwood District. Homes, businesses, and churches were set ablaze, reducing the once thriving community to ashes. The level of destruction was devastating, as the prosperous black enclave was systematically razed to the ground. The suppressed nature of the Tulsa Race Massacre lies in the subsequent efforts to conceal and downplay the extent of the violence. The massacre was primarily omitted from historical records, and survivors were often silenced or marginalized. The accurate scale of the tragedy was not widely acknowledged, and many details were left out of mainstream historical narratives. The massacre resulted in the loss of numerous lives, the displacement of families, and the obliteration of generational wealth. The survivors and their descendants faced persistent challenges, as the trauma inflicted by the events lingered for decades. It was only in recent years that concerted efforts have been made to uncover and acknowledge the suppressed history of the Tulsa Race Massacre, shedding light on the atrocities committed and their lasting impact on the black community. The quest for justice and recognition continues as the nation grapples with the legacy of this dark episode in American history. Number 19. Vikings, often portrayed with a sense of mystique and adventure in popular culture, have a historical legacy that includes both remarkable achievements and, unfortunately, instances of brutality. While the Vikings are celebrated for their seafaring prowess, exploration, and trading activities, there's an undeniable darker side to their history. Something frighteningly grim about Viking history is their involvement in raids and plundering across Europe during the Viking Age, which spanned from the late 8th to early 11th century. Viking raids weren't confined to maritime territories. They often targeted monasteries, towns, and villages. These raids were marked by violence, looting, and, at times, the taking of enslaved people. The sheer scale of these attacks left a lasting impact on the regions they targeted. The infamous Viking attacks on monasteries, particularly in places like Lindisfarne in England, symbolized the brutality associated with their raids. Monasteries, often seen as centers of wealth and cultural repositories, were attractive targets for the Vikings seeking riches. The plundering and destruction of these religious institutions contributed to a perception of Vikings as ruthless invaders. Slavery was another grim facet of Viking history. While the Vikings themselves were not the sole perpetrators of the slave trade during their time, they actively engaged in capturing and trading enslaved people. Number 18. The hidden aftermath of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The aftermath of the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki revealed a stark and haunting reality hidden beneath the initial flashes and mushroom clouds. These catastrophic events, which occurred towards the end of World War II, left a lasting impact that extended far beyond the immediate devastation witnessed in the moments of the bombings. In the wake of the bombings, the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki bore witness to widespread destruction, with buildings reduced to rubble and the landscape transformed into a haunting testament to the power of nuclear weapons. The immediate loss of lives was staggering, as thousands succumbed to the direct effects of the blasts, while many more faced injuries and long-term health repercussions from radiation exposure. The hidden aftermath went beyond the visible destruction and casualties. Survivors, known as hibakusha, faced enduring physical and psychological consequences. The radiation exposure resulted in a myriad of health issues, including cancers, congenital disabilities, and a range of long-term illnesses. The unseen wounds of the atomic bombings continued to afflict individuals for years, shaping their lives and the generations that followed. The hibakusha grappled with the haunting memories of the blinding flashes, the loud explosions, and the profound loss of loved ones. Why do you think this was hidden for so long? Number 17. History of ancient Roman plumbing. Unlike our modern understanding of plumbing, the Romans devised a system that, while advanced for its time, might evoke both awe and a tinge of apprehension. Picture the bustling streets of ancient Rome, with its grandeur and architectural marvels. Beneath the majestic city lay an extensive network of sewers designed to manage the waste generated by its teeming population. The Cloaca Maxima, one of the earliest sewage systems, is a testament to Roman engineering prowess. Still, the scale of this system and its operation may give pause to the contemporary observer. The citizens of Rome were blissfully unaware of the intricate underground world beneath their feet. The sewage system, designed to channel rainwater and human waste, led to the Tiber River. This amalgamation of natural and human-generated effluents in a massive drainage system paints a vivid picture of ancient sanitation practices. The consequences of such amalgamation, both in terms of hygiene and environmental impact, might strike the modern mind as a daunting prospect. While the Roman approach to sanitation represented a pioneering effort in its era, the scale and communal nature of their plumbing systems could evoke a sense of both marvel and trepidation. The ancient Romans, in their quest for engineering excellence, bequeathed to history a plumbing legacy that, though awe-inspiring, might also instill a certain degree of disquiet when viewed through the lens of our modern sensibilities. Number 16. The Forbidden Opium Wars. Seeking to balance the trade deficit caused by their insatiable demand for Chinese goods, the British resumed exporting opium grown in India to China. This narcotic not only wreaked havoc on the health of the Chinese populace, but also drained China of its precious silver reserves, causing economic turmoil. The Chinese Qing dynasty, recognizing the detrimental effects of opium, attempted to curtail the trade by issuing edicts against its production and consumption. Still, these efforts were met with resistance from the British, who were determined to protect their opium profits. This led to a series of conflicts known as the Opium Wars, with the first occurring from 1839 to 1842 and the second from 1856 to 1860. The First Opium War erupted when Chinese authorities seized and destroyed a significant quantity of British-owned opium. In response, the British, equipped with superior naval power and advanced weaponry, launched a military campaign to safeguard their opium interests. The Treaty of Nanking concluded the First War, granting the British significant concessions, including territorial control of Hong Kong. The Second Opium War arose from tensions between China and foreign powers, including Britain and France, over trade and diplomatic relations. This conflict further exposed China's vulnerability, resulting in the signing of the Treaty of Tientsin and the burning of the Old Summer Palace. The opium trade persisted, despite the Chinese government's resistance, leaving an enduring scar on China's history. Number 15. Molten gold poured down Marcus Crassus's throat. When he died, when Marcus Crassus met his demise, the tales that emerged painted a vivid and dramatic scene, one that resonates with a mix of historical intrigue and embellishment. Legend has it that Molten Gold played a macabre role in his final moments, adding a layer of spectacle to the account of his death. As the story goes, Marcus Licinius Crassus, a prominent Roman general and statesman, met his end during the ill-fated Parthian expedition in 53 BC. Captured by the Parthians after a failed campaign, Crassus faced a fate as legendary as his wealth and ambition. The narratives surrounding his death, however, vary, and separating fact from fiction becomes a delicate task. One historically contested version suggests that Crassus, renowned for his immense wealth, faced a gruesome and symbolic demise. According to this rendition, the Parthians, led by the commander Serena, sought to mock Crassus's insatiable greed and thirst for wealth. The tale unfolds with a theatrical twist. Molten gold, synonymous with opulence and wealth, allegedly found its way into Crassus's mouth. This gruesome detail, though captivating, raises many eyebrows. Number 14. Hidden heritage of Mount Rushmore. Mount Rushmore, a symbol of American history, has more to its story than the iconic presidential faces etched into its granite facade. Beneath the surface of this renowned monument lies a hidden heritage that unfolds with layers of significance. Carved into the Black Hills of South Dakota, Mount Rushmore is not just a colossal sculpture, but a canvas of historical narratives. As you gaze upon the massive faces of George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln, the peculiarity of the carving is jaw-dropping. But delving deeper into the history reveals the decisions that led to the selection of these four presidents. Beyond the symbolism of the presidential faces, Mount Rushmore conceals tales of ambition and ingenuity. The project faced challenges, from funding constraints to technical complexities, pushing the limits of the sculptor's skill and perseverance. The dynamism of these challenges, intertwined with the monumental ambition of the carving, echoes the resilience ingrained in the American spirit. Mount Rushmore's hidden heritage also extends to the craftsmanship involved in its creation. Number 13. Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus, often celebrated for his role in the Age of Exploration, harbors a darker side marked by terrifying facts that echo through history. In the late 15th century, sponsored by the Spanish crown, Columbus embarked on a perilous journey to find a westward route to Asia. While he did reach the Americas, the impact of his arrival is stained with unsettling truths. One of the most disturbing facts of Columbus's legacy is the treatment of indigenous peoples encountered during his voyages. The explorer's arrival began a series of devastating consequences for the native populations. Forced labor, exploitation, and violence characterized Columbus's interactions with the Taino people of the Caribbean. The arrival of Europeans brought diseases previously unknown to the Americas, leading to widespread epidemics that decimated indigenous communities, adding an accidental yet horrifying chapter to Columbus's legacy. Columbus's quest for wealth and power fueled ruthless methods of subjugation. Reports detail brutal acts, including mass killings, mutilations, and enslavement, perpetrated under his command. The search for gold and riches fueled a relentless pursuit of dominance, leaving a trail of devastation in the wake of European expansion. Number 12. The not-so-glamorous life of pirates. Life on the high seas as a pirate wasn't the romanticized adventure often portrayed in stories and movies. The reality was a not-so-glamorous existence fraught with challenges and hardships. Pirates, operating outside the law, faced a daily struggle for survival in harsh conditions. One of the foremost challenges was the constant threat of violence and conflict. Pirates sailed on vessels armed with cannons and weaponry, ready for skirmishes with rival pirate crews or naval forces aiming to quell their illicit activities. Engaging in combat, often desperate and brutal, was an ever-present aspect of their lives, reflecting the problematic nature of piracy. Life aboard a pirate ship was far from luxurious. Cramped quarters, limited hygiene facilities, and meager rations created an uncomfortable and unsanitary environment. Pirates endured long, arduous voyages filled with monotony, punctuated by sporadic moments of chaos during raids or confrontations at sea. Health hazards were rampant. Malnutrition, scurvy, and other diseases were expected due to insufficient nutrition and medical care. Number 11. Aqueducts. Aqueducts stand as a sad historical testament, a stark reality etched in the annals of human civilization. In times long past, these structures served not as marvels of engineering ingenuity, but as harbingers of oppression, embodying a dark chapter in the historical narrative. As water conduits, aqueducts were meant to nourish and sustain communities, yet their legacy is deeply involved with the subjugation of defeated peoples. The construction of aqueducts often coincided with the expansion of empires, as conquering forces sought to wield control over vital resources. The ostensible purpose of these aqueducts was to supply water to burgeoning cities and military garrisons, fostering the growth and sustenance of imperial ambitions. But beneath the veneer of utility lay a more insidious reality. The forced labor that underpinned the creation of aqueducts cast a long shadow over their historical significance. Countless individuals, often prisoners of war or subjugated populations, toiled under oppressive conditions to realize the grand vision of aqueducts. Number 10. The untold Armenian Genocide. This tragic event occurred within the Ottoman Empire, present-day Turkey, where the Armenian population faced systematic extermination and forced deportations, resulting in immense suffering and loss of life. During this period, the Ottoman government, under the cover of war, executed a systematic plan to eliminate the Armenian population. The Armenians, who were primarily Christian, were targeted for their ethnic and religious identity. The atrocities included mass killings, forced marches, and deportations that exposed the Armenian people to brutal conditions, starvation, and violence. One of the critical elements of the Armenian Genocide was the forced relocation of Armenians from their ancestral lands to desolate regions. Families were torn apart, and individuals were subjected to inhumane treatment during these forced marches, which often resulted in death due to starvation, exhaustion, or outright violence. Mass killings were another gruesome aspect of the genocide. Armenians were rounded up and systematically executed in various ways, including mass shootings, burnings, and other forms of brutality. Number 9. The Great Emu War of Australia. This strange war, which happened in 1932, was a peculiar episode in history that highlighted the challenges faced by farmers in dealing with a large population of emus, flightless birds native to the country. Faced with a surge in emu numbers due to post-World War I land development, Western Australian farmers sought assistance from the government in addressing the perceived threat posed by the emus to crops. The government responded by deploying soldiers armed with 2 Lewis machine guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition. The soldiers, led by Major G.P.W. Meredith, were tasked with reducing the emu population to protect agricultural interests. However, the campaign proved to be far more challenging than anticipated. The soldiers faced difficulties effectively targeting the fast and agile emus, which displayed remarkable evasive maneuvers. The large-scale operation quickly encountered logistical issues as the soldiers struggled to keep up with the birds' movements across vast and open terrains. The Lewis machine guns, initially believed to be effective against the emus, proved insufficient in controlling the population. The campaign, officially conducted between November and December 1932, ended with the government withdrawing its forces and declaring the emus the victors. Number 8. Death by elephant as a popular form of execution in ancient Asia. In ancient Asia, death by elephant was a grim and macabre execution that held a significant place in the region's history. This method of punishment was not only brutal but also served as a spectacle, often witnessed by crowds gathered for public executions. The concept behind death by elephant involved employing these massive animals as instruments of execution. The condemned individual would face the sheer power and force of an elephant, an experience both terrifying and fatal. The elephants were trained or coerced to carry out the execution, becoming unwilling agents of death in the hands of their human handlers. This form of execution was often reserved for individuals deemed to have committed serious crimes or offenses against the ruling powers. The severity of the punishment aimed to instill fear within the population and serve as a reminder of the consequences of defying authority. The public nature of these executions added an element of intimidation, reinforcing the authority of those in power. Beyond its use as a method of punishment, death by elephants also held cultural and symbolic significance. The elephant, revered in various ancient Asian cultures, was transformed into an instrument of justice. even though it was a brutal one. Number 7. History of the English language. It all began with the Germanic tribes, the Angles, Saxons, and Jutes, who invaded England around the 5th century. These tribes brought their Germanic languages, laying the foundational roots of what would evolve into English. The early modern English period, exemplified by Shakespeare's works, witnessed further linguistic evolution. The great vowel shift altered pronunciation, bringing the language closer to its modern form. Exploration and trade expanded English vocabulary as words from various cultures entered the lexicon. Colonial expansion further globalized English. As British colonies flourished, English became a global force, spreading to North America, Australia, Africa, and Asia. Local dialects and indigenous languages influenced regional variations of English, creating diverse linguistic landscapes. The Industrial Revolution brought technological advancements and, with them, new terminologies. The 19th and 20th centuries saw English asserting its dominance in science, technology, and diplomacy. Number 6. The history of ketchup. The ketchup story begins in ancient China, where a sauce called katsuap was created. This early version was a fermented fish brine seasoned with herbs and spices. It was a far cry from the tomato-based ketchup we recognize today, but it marked the initial steps in the condiment's evolution. In the 17th century, European travelers and traders encountered this Chinese sauce and returned it to their homelands. The tomato's introduction to ketchup happened in the 18th century. Initially met with skepticism, tomatoes were considered poisonous by some Europeans. It wasn't until the early 19th century that tomatoes gained broader acceptance in ketchup recipes, primarily in America. Soon, tomato-based ketchup became popular, offering a tangy and sweet flavor that appealed to a broad audience. H.J. Heinz played a pivotal role in shaping the modern ketchup industry. In 1876, Heinz introduced a tomato ketchup recipe that instantly succeeded. He focused on quality, using ripe tomatoes and refining the production process. Heinz's ketchup gained a reputation for consistency and flavor, setting a standard for the condiment. The popularity of ketchup soared in the 20th century with its mass production and widespread availability. It became a staple in households, restaurants, and fast food establishments. Number 5. Bengal Famine. In 1943, the Bengal Famine's roots can be traced to events that unfolded during World War II. The war disrupted normal trade channels and created a scarcity of goods and resources. Bengal, being an agricultural region heavily reliant on rice cultivation, faced challenges as the war affected both the supply and distribution of essential food items. The cyclone of 1942 exacerbated the situation. It struck the Bay of Bengal, causing widespread destruction to crops and infrastructure. The loss of agricultural productivity, combined with the disruption of supply chains due to the war, created a severe food shortage in the region. Government mismanagement and a lack of effective relief measures aggravated the crisis. The administration failed to respond adequately to the escalating food shortage, leading to widespread hunger and malnutrition. The effects were particularly devastating for vulnerable groups, including the poor and marginalized communities. As a result, millions of people in Bengal faced extreme suffering, with starvation claiming a substantial number of lives. Number 4. Gregorian Calendar. The history of the Gregorian Calendar, while now a widely accepted and commonly used system, has its share of complexities and adjustments. The calendar, introduced by Pope Gregory XIII in October 1582, aimed to reform the Julian calendar, which had some inaccuracies in tracking the solar year. One of the main reasons for the introduction of the Gregorian calendar was to bring the date of the spring equinox closer to March 21st, aligning with the ecclesiastical traditions of celebrating Easter. The shift aimed to reconcile the calendar with the astronomical reality of Earth's orbit around the Sun. To implement this adjustment, Pope Gregory XIII decreed a skip in the calendar, omitting 10 days from October 1582. This move was met with resistance and confusion as people grappled with the sudden disappearance of days from their lives. It generated apprehension and fueled skepticism about the intentions behind such a significant change. The calendar reform was not universally adopted at once, leading to a period of dual dating, where different regions followed either the Julian or Gregorian calendar. The disparities created a sense of disarray and inconsistency, particularly in international communications and trade. Number 3. Witch trials in Europe. In Europe, the witch trials were a dark chapter in history marked by widespread fear, superstition, and persecution. The trials, which peaked in the 16th and 17th centuries, targeted individuals, predominantly women, who were accused of practicing witchcraft or having dealings with the devil. The trials were fueled by religious fervor, social unrest, and a deep-seated belief in supernatural forces. Accusations of witchcraft often stemmed from mundane events, such as crop failures, epidemics, or personal conflicts within communities. The accused were subjected to harsh interrogations and torture to extract confessions, which were often unreliable due to the extreme duress faced by the alleged witches. The trials occurred in various European countries, with notable outbreaks in Germany, Switzerland, Scotland, and England. The legal proceedings during the witch trials were characterized by a lack of due process and a presumption of guilt. The accused faced biased courts, and their fates were often sealed by the prevailing hysteria surrounding witchcraft. Authorities, including church and secular courts, played a significant role in perpetuating the trials, leading to mass executions of those deemed guilty. Methods of execution were brutal and varied. Accused witches were burned at the stake, hanged, or subjected to other forms of capital punishment. Number 2. The Great Wall. One chilling fact is the immense human cost involved in its construction. Millions of laborers, including soldiers, peasants, and prisoners, toiled under grueling conditions to erect this colossal barrier. Many lost their lives due to the strenuous labor, harsh weather, and inadequate resources. The Great Wall, in essence, stands as a colossal memorial to the sacrifices and hardships of those who built it. Another eerie aspect is the folklore surrounding the wall, steeped in myths and legends. The defensive mechanisms embedded within the wall also add an element of eeriness. Watchtowers equipped with signal fires, military garrisons, and strategic placements of soldiers serve to detect and repel invaders. The sheer scale of these defensive measures reflects the constant threat the builders felt, contributing to a sense of foreboding associated with the structure. The wall also witnessed numerous battles and conflicts throughout history. Bloodshed and warfare have left their mark on this monumental structure. Number 1. The Little Ice Age. The Little Ice Age, a period of cooling from roughly the 14th to the mid-19th century, brought about a series of chilling and often frightening phenomena for people living during that time. One of the most unsettling aspects was the irregular and severe weather patterns that disrupted agricultural cycles and threatened food supplies. Winters became much harsher, with freezing temperatures and heavy snowfall occurring even in regions with milder climates. This sudden and prolonged cold created widespread hardship as crops failed, leading to famines that swept through communities. Famine-related issues, such as malnutrition and weakened immune systems, contributed to increased vulnerability to diseases, making the Little Ice Age a period of heightened mortality. The impact extended beyond agriculture, affecting daily life in unexpected ways. Rivers and lakes froze more frequently, hampering transportation and trade. Frost fairs, held on frozen water bodies, became a source of entertainment and a reminder of the challenging conditions. Meanwhile, glaciers advanced in various parts of the world, creeping upon settlements and causing alarm among those witnessing the changing landscapes. The Little Ice Age also impacted society through extreme weather events. Unpredictable and intense storms, including harsh winters and cool summers, created a heightened sense of fear and uncertainty. Communities accustomed to more stable climates found themselves grappling with the unpredictability of nature, fueling concerns about the end of the world and divine wrath. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, leave a comment, and share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting content.